Welcome to Guest Talks with Tracy Arbon. Bringing you special guest interviews from musictalks.xyz.
Hi everybody, it's Tracy Arbon here for Guest Talks for Music Talks, and today's special guest is a huge entertainer, vocalist from Australia. Her name is Christine Anu, and if you haven't heard of Christine Anu yet, look, just pretty much just Google the name. I mean, she's everywhere. She has made her first big hit was a song called My Island Home. She's worked with Paul Kelly. She's won so many awards, 5 Aria Awards. I'm pretty sure it's 5. But welcome to Guest Talks, Christine.
Hello, Tracy Arbon. Christine Anu here.
How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. Not bad for a busy afternoon, busy day so far, but great to be speaking to you. Just to have a nice little yarn, a nice little chat.
Yeah. I love to talk, but most people know that who know me. I just, normally they can't keep me to shut up underwater. Anyway, Christine, can we just let people know exactly? I know it's a long time because we were chatting earlier. You've been around since I was around when I was signed as well to a record company in Australia, and at that time you had this big hit called My Island Home. That was your first big hit.
Yeah. So technically, I guess it would have been the first song of mine off the album. There are a couple that had been released previously,
right? Or
three songs that had been released previously, but this became probably the one that became the signature because it wasn't just the best female that I won in the Aria. It won best song, APRA Song of the Year. It ended up just having its life, a life of its own. And fast forward to 2016, it's in the Sound and Film Archives in Canberra for posterity forever. And
wow!
And and long before, a lot of people don't know this, but it's a cover.
Yeah.
It was originally written and performed by the Warumpi Band, who were probably one of the first very famous Aboriginal rock bands to emerge out of the Northern Territory. When the song was written, it was massive amongst the Aboriginal population because it being an Aboriginal band, the biggest following were Aboriginal communities and Torres Strait Islander communities around the country. I am of Torres Strait Islander heritage, so this was known to me.
Right.
However, if you would have told me when I was ending my high school years and looking to pursue a career in the performing arts, and said to me, you know what, you're going to record that song one day and it's going to do this and it's going to do that, and I would have laughed you out of the house. So, yeah, and so it kind of did stalk me. And what had happened was the gentleman who was the non-Indigenous member of the Warumpi Band, who was also the guitarist.
That's Neil Murray?
That's right. And the main composer, main contributor to this, main songwriter of the band anyway, he wrote the song. And I later in my years as a dance student, because when I finished high school I left central Queensland on the eastern coast and headed towards New South Wales into the Big Smoke, into the capital city of New South Wales, Sydney, and joined a dance school. And I signed up for a 5-year dance course. I know that sounds kind of crazy to commit to something for 5 years, especially that you would come out of it with just an associate diploma, which meant that you would not get a lot of jobs. But I was dedicated to learning the art form of a lot of dances.
Yeah.
In my 5th and final year, about 8 months out from graduating, I met Neil Murray, who wrote My Island Home, and I met him through another classmate who was graduating at the same time as me, and she said, look, my friend Neil. And I said, no, I don't know who you're talking about. She said, well, anyway, this is his number. He said, give him a call. He heard you singing today. We were singing cultural dances from the Central Torres Strait Islands, which is not where my parents are from, but the central part of the Torres Strait. My parents are from the western part of the Torres Strait.
Okay.
If you think of the Torres Strait Islands like divided up into states, there's like 5 different regions or 5 different states of the Torres Strait Islands. So I was singing these dances, which aren't actually my own dances. The school just learnt. We learnt everything Aboriginal and everything Torres Strait Islander, just to kind of for the culture to extend itself, and so we can take it up from beyond that point.
Yeah.
He saw me singing the songs, and he said, I think you should be in my band as a backing singer. Well, I mean, this has been something I'd wanted since I was a little girl. So it's not like I looked on my calendar to see to check what I jumped at the opportunity. We had a couple of, and I wasn't singing at this point. I hadn't had any training. I wasn't really singing. I wasn't writing any songs. I wasn't doing anything preparing myself
to be a singer.
Right. And so there he was. There we were rehearsing on his porch in Annandale for a couple of weeks, and then my debut as a backing singer was at this dingy dive in the south east of Sydney called Sylvania Hotel. And it's one of those pubs, if you remember pub gigging in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone cuts their teeth in these dingy pubs, right? And that was that was the first time I sang. And listen, I mean, it was the first time I'd ever start to understand that Neil wanted to be as far away. Neil Murray wanted to be as far away from that song as possible, because he's a poet. He's prolific singer-songwriter, and that's what he was doing, was constantly producing new material. But being up on stage with him, I just saw his frustrations. All people ever wanted to hear was My Island Home. So he should start singing the song. So in that 8-month period before I graduated from the dance school, I was singing My Island Home by then, and I met a lot of industry people through Neil, and by the time I graduated I signed a record deal, and I didn't have any demos, so My Island Home became my demo, and I landed that song by default.
Wow. See, I really firmly believe that things are meant to happen for a reason. So it's hard to, I guess some things don't happen for a lot of artists because, you have to focus on things and focus what you want, but things happen at the right time when they're supposed to happen. That's what I believe.
Absolutely. But you do that blindly navigating sometimes.
Yeah. Now, Neil Murray's great. He's actually been on the site. He was actually one of our very first artists, believe it or not. He was so kind. I guess it kind of helps when you do, know a few people. But he wrote a great story and a great article for us. And he is amazing with just storytelling, isn't he? He's a great guy. Did you ever read what he wrote when Adam Goodes was booed out of the game that we all have come to know about, the racism that Adam had to forego during that. It was basically his last season at the Sydney Swans, and it was a terrible weekend for him because of it was the booing where he lifted up his shirt and he pointed at the colour of his skin and got food and all the rest of that. So there was a documentary that's been done about that recently. But before that, Neil Murray took to the media and wrote this amazing piece saying, good on you, Adam Goodes. And it was just remarkable. And that's when you just really see the kind of artistry in composition, in writing, just a true sort of wordsmith that he is, and how passionate he is about, all things that are Indigenous, I guess. Yeah, amazing guy, amazing. There was Monkey and the Turtle as well.
Yeah, so the first ever track that I ever made was only ever meant to be a project, and it was because I'd signed with Mushroom Records, white label. They said, look, we've got to get something out as soon as we can, just to get sort of some media interest. And I teamed up with Paul Kelly, who you mentioned before,
Yeah.
With his song called Last Train.
That's right.
And it was a dub reggae sort of version of his songs that was kind of made a little bit more current to the time. This is the early 90s. And that was nominated for an Aria, but my management team and I were saying, well, it's by no means an indication of what the album's going to sound like. So, by default, it's out there. But now you're nominated. That's not a bad thing. But what a great terrible thing to place, right? so that was the first one. The second, when the album came out, it was Monkey and the Turtle, and what was really amazing about the song at the time was that I wasn't writing songs, so I really needed to start writing and thinking about what it was that my writing voice sounded. The Mabo decision, Eddie Mabo 10-year battle in the High Court, was handed down in 1992. I was segueing between my last years of studies and into my first year as a professional dancer with the Bangarra Dance Company, because we all know that signing a record deal doesn't make you a millionaire.
Yeah.
So you're still bordering on Centrelink and some kind of versions of 2 or 3 jobs as much as you can. Yeah. So there we were at Redfern Park in Sydney, and at the time the country was led by Paul Keating, who is the leader for Labor, and he did a prolific speech in Redfern Park around about that. There was a lot of stuff happening politically for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, and mainly because of the Eddie Mabo case and having it been won. So we celebrated 25 years of that decision last year in 2018. I really looked back towards how we'd been taught from a very young age about the very thing that Eddie Mabo based his argument on, about the First Nations people of the region having always been there, how the religion and how a lot of things have been part of our stories from when we were growing up. One of those stories became a nursery rhyme called The Monkey and the Turtle. Right. And it really is based on you don't go onto other people's places and property, and you don't take what's not yours. And he took all of this philosophy into his argument in the court, and he won. And I thought, well, we've always been taught this, and it based back to a simple nursery rhyme. So I made a song out of it. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was cutesy, but it was based on a lot of historical reference, and Mushroom Records made it the first single off my album, and there'd been nothing in the media or in the music soundscape that sounded like anything from the Torres Strait Islands. So it was either a good tax write-off or it was a idea of theirs.
Maybe you should do a re-release.
Yeah. I think I did the 25th anniversary of that, the 20th anniversary of that album. So I think Monkey and the Turtle was on there. But yeah, it's I do talk about that, the references to that song. But I just think it was genius of the record company to go out with something that was kind of risky.
Yeah. And back in those days, I mean, I guess still now a lot of labels or bigger labels don't like to take risks, do they? So it's quite going back at that time too. I mean, I don't know, maybe I guess
back at that time, Yothu Indie were making big international noise out of Australia with Treaty and Up and Up and songs like that. So they were exploding onto the international music scene in a major way. But still, that was men. As our industry always does represent. It was still Indigenous, which was absolutely a reason to celebrate. But there was no Torres Strait Islander woman. And I was riding on the crest of that sort of wave of new Australian music, or authentic Australian music, music from the sovereign people of Australia. And so I think that since then, Skinny Fish Records did that with Dr. G, who passed away last year or the year before, with really putting out that language album that he did and bringing the Yolngu Yolngu language to the forefront, and making our languages something to celebrate. And it's not world music. It doesn't have a category of its own. It has a place in the Australian music landscape.
Yes, and speaking of having a place in Australia, being Australian, I actually recently saw something about introducing the Aboriginal language and more about the Aboriginal history to all Australian people within every school.
Well, this has been going on for some time. So it's not a movement that just happened recently. This has been pushed by Indigenous people since I was in school, and I'm 49 now. So when I was going to school in Brisbane, I remember Torres Strait Islanders who were going to university in Brisbane at the time, turning up to our schools. And I went to Wooloowin Public School in Brisbane, and I remembered people rocking up to the school looking, Melanesian looking like my parents, and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, the Islanders have arrived in Brisbane. They were there to give us a post-lunchtime assembly where they were going to be teaching us language, cultural song and cultural dance. And I believe that it is at that point in time that I was bitten by the bug, that is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to present my language to the world through music. Music's a powerful tool for educating and sending messages, and for me, it was about how language identifies who you are. It identifies you to country, to place, to people. It is everything. And and because it was lost and it was taken away, it is dying. And the year of 2019 is the year that the United Nations Assembly have declared 2019 as the year of Indigenous languages. We are now making it urgent in all areas of life, not just in education, to make language something that we have to make a priority to revive. And it's been done everywhere. There are dictionaries that were kept by the first colonialists that are being uncovered and recovered. A lot of information was burnt down in the big botanical fire in the botanical gardens back in the late 1800s in Sydney. So a lot of stuff was destroyed, but there's a lot of there is a lot of restorative work going on in that field to bring back Aboriginal languages. They won't be what the original languages were. They won't be in their original form, but the revival is to try to piece together as much as possible to bring that alive. Especially along the eastern seaboard. The Torres Strait still speaks the languages up in the Torres Strait. Mostly in the Northern Territory, in the north part of Western Australia. Everywhere else is really trying. I know that in Tasmania, where for the large part, Australians thought that Tasmanian Aboriginals were wiped out, but that's not the case at all. The Palawa language has been revived, and it is going into newspapers. It is being spoken quite commonly in Tasmania. In fact, it is probably one of the names of Aboriginal languages right up the top that are spearheading in a very, speeding like a bullet, basically, to get it really out there and known.
Yeah, when I saw this recently, I understand that it has always been, a push for more education to be, brought upon the average Australian out there, the Caucasian, the people who are, even if you've immigrated or you haven't, or when I did see this recently, and I thought, you know what, if it could be done, I think that everybody else would have so much, obviously, a better understanding of what this country is about and where it all started from, obviously, other than, just learning the language, but the history of it all. And I just know that when we were taught in schools, there was no history about Australia. We never knew anything about Australia.
Well, we did. we just knew about the first 150 years of Australia. But see, Australia exists well before 150 years. We now celebrate almost 250 years of colonisation in Australia. But Australia is not 250 years old by any means.
No, but I'm talking about more or less the Indigenous side of Australia.
It was non-existent. When I went to school, it was invisible. It was you were made to feel ashamed about it, and it wasn't because of it wasn't your fault. It was the educators who really weren't directed in their studies to become a teacher, to know what to say about it and what to teach about it. Because if you're learning off of books and the books are absent of any of that information, then what do you teach your kids? So really,
well, the teachers wouldn't have had any idea either.
No, that's right. So we need a reason to be proud of who we are. You talked about Americans being patriarchal. They learn about. Have you ever heard children recite the beginnings of the American society? We don't have any of that here. We don't have a common pride, a common connection. We can say, look, when we are open to the people that come and become a part of the new people who become a part of Australian society, has always been something that we've been open armed to, no matter who we are. And we've embraced them rather, but when they're asked to integrate and become they're kind of left up to their own devices, because no one really has an idea of what that means to be Australian.
Yes.
Is it Vegemite? Is it a koala? Is it
a meat pie?
Is it thongs? And Americans look at thongs like what you wear as underwear.
Yeah, I was just going to say
they're on our feet. Yeah, so what is it to be Australian? And it's really until Australia has a legal binding document called a treaty that recognises that the First Nations people of Australia are the sovereign owners of this land, we will never, ever share a common future.
Yes. Wow. Do you think that there is potential to bring and to educate people now? Do you think that they're, I know there's always been a push for it. Do you think that, after the, back in when Labor were in government, there was apologies made, but...
The apology to the stolen generations, okay? So we have had the White Australia policy that existed way back as early as the 30s, okay, to take children who were of paler skinned appearance, paler appearance to their mothers and fathers, from them, ripped from their arms and put into dormitory or... institutions, basically, cared for by people who had no care to love them, no care to show nurturing. They were just there doing a job, which is you are here to get them up in the morning and go through their chores in the day and make sure that they're in their beds at night. As far as punishment went, and as far as keeping children uniform, there was no one policed it. No.
And there's that amazing movie that if anybody wants to see what that was like, there's a movie called Rabbit Proof Fence that,
that's directed by Phil Noyce. And Phil Noyce is a respected director. So if you want to see that Rabbit Proof Fence, it's absolutely...
it's heartbreaking. I just be prepared when you see it, because you will be in tears.
Yes, there've been. It's not so much the push or anything like that. You know what is a gentler word for all of us to understand what this is about is a lot of awareness around the subject of what it is to understand the trauma, the intergenerational trauma that Aboriginal people have experienced through the governance of this land, its treatment of people, and that this is the trauma and healing from this is not just for communities in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to go through. This is about a wider country understanding what that means for that healing to happen, but for a nation to move forward. We need to talk about the past and in its whole entirety to be a solid foundation and have us as a country and have a future where we thrive.
Yeah, I agree. And also, look, until, a lot of these things had been brought up and these movies were made and more discussions were, brought upon everybody in Australia. I mean, the average, like myself, people like myself, I was born in South Australia, and, we had no idea what was going on, what had gone on in the past, because like we talked about before, we weren't educated about what happened in the Aboriginal and Indigenous communities, and it wasn't until I guess I was a little bit older and I became more aware of what was going on, and then it kind of makes you feel ashamed. Really ashamed, to call myself Australian, to know that this is what happened back.
Feeling ashamed is quite it's an emotion that we as humans really don't know what to do with. But it's about being proactive about what does feeling ashamed make you want to be? How do I be proactive about how this makes me feel?
Well, we talk about it and we
give it a voice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we have to let other people, and the funny thing is there's a lot of people overseas that tend to know quite a lot about our background, the Indigenous backgrounds. And yeah, it's incredibly sad what happened, and I really, really do hope that it's more is done. We always hope more is done, but it's just why so slow? And we know it's politics,
but also too something that you just said is that you speak to a lot of the musicians that you speak to on your podcast, and there is a lot of information that they're aware of. But do you understand how that has happened? Is because there are so many amazing Indigenous musicians who are getting opportunities to work overseas and work with such amazing producers, singer-songwriters. They're getting to support amazing international acts and having the opportunity to sit down and have really frank and candid conversations. This is how today's day and age is being able to expose, because everybody's got their own individual story. Mine's different to the next, to my friend who's Indigenous, to the next person, to the next person. We've all got our ancestors, relatives, distant relatives in our community. We've all got somebody that we can follow in our family tree where there's a magnificent story to tell. And the stories are getting out now through people like AB Original, Briggs, a lot of Indigenous hip-hop artists where their MCing is the shit. Like it is, their profile is so strong and so out there. There are country musicians, Troy Cassadaly, writing about their stories. Thelma Plum, Dan Sultan is just, he blows my mind. There are Yulngamuthy. There's Baker Boy who's coming out of the Northern Territory.
We love Baker Boy.
Yeah. And Dr. Yunupingu, the former lead singer of Yothi Yindi, his daughter, Dapanbali Yunupingu, is the first Yulngu woman to ever be a touring musician out of the Northern Territory. So there's a lot of things happening in history right now. It's been happening for a long time. Some of it because of the opportunities provided to us by our forebears are happening, like for Baker Boy, for Yirmal and for Dapanbal Yunupingu. It's, young, the young artist whose name eludes me at the moment. It's from Brisbane. She is from Groot Island. Emily Wurramara. Now these are names, and of course Jess Mauboy. How could I pass Jess Mauboy? and yes, and there's the young Isaiah. There are just so many Indigenous musicians from all different genres, all out there telling their story. And this is how the international music scene is finding out more about what's happening in Australia. You know what? And probably even more informed than what most of Australia is.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Because, I agree. And not that I like to, stamp on our fellow people, but it's just everybody's also so caught up with their own world, and I get that it's all sort of relative to what's going on in everybody's lives, but it is the awareness. It is going outside of your circle and really having a look around you and looking at what's going on in the world instead of just what's going on in your backyard. Sorry?
No, that's really great, Tracy. Absolutely. Not waiting for things to drop out of the sky into your lap.
No! Right. Your life will be over if you do that.
Yeah. So I'm talking about, even for instance, my own family history. It's rather than waking up every day and waiting for ends to meet. How did this happen in the family, and how did this? And this goes no matter what your background is, really. But I mean, I speak about my Indigenous heritage in the music space. I apologise to listeners if they think that they've got a little bit political there, but this is very much related right back to my music, and I do in my own radio show. Talk to a lot of musicians, and a lot of musicians really that I do speak to in Australia who are non-Indigenous are very much across it.
Right. And so, hang on, you mentioned your own radio show. Let's just dive in there. What radio show are you doing?
So I'm in my 4th year running of a radio show that I do with the Australian Broadcasting Commission.
Okay.
The ABC, as we're known in Australia. It's a national radio show, but I'm based out of Sydney.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, so it's a national radio show that happens, it's an evenings show, so basically it's named Evenings. And it's on a Friday night and a Saturday night from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. And usually it's a digital show,
right,
because the sports is on. So ABC Grandstand takes over the analog, and I'm sort of shoved over to digital, which is the way that the world is heading anyway. A lot of us have.
You're ahead of the time, Christine.
You go onto the ABC Listen app. I mean, I've had people ring me from Utah. I've had people ring me from all over the world on my program, and it would. While I'm freaking out and it spins me out that I'm speaking to somebody on the other side of the world, I still have to hold it together and go, yep, this is the way that we live now. We can be connected to everyone, everywhere, at any time of the day.
Yeah, and it's going, because I know that just from running music talks, and as we were talking before, it's just incredible. You when you find a great community as well. And more and more people sort of join in, and you actually really don't know where people are from sometimes. Like, you're just communicating, then you find out that you're speaking to someone in, like you say, someone in Nashville, someone in Canada, someone in Sweden, someone else in, Armenia, or they're Armenian, or it's amazing. It's incredible, and it's amazing how many people have. Sorry.
I was interviewing a voice contestant from 2018 whose name is Colin Lilly.
Right.
And I was reading the comments below his YouTube video for his latest single, and there was someone all the way over in Nashville, then there was someone all the way over in Denmark. There were about 3 or 4 comments from people from different companies who'd all watched him perform on The Voice, who all said pretty much the same thing, about him as an artist and him as a performer-composer. I thought that was amazing. That was pretty remarkable. And, it I just think that plug away at what you do. Don't try to be a number one, this, that, and the other. Focus on what your message is. Be true to the artist that you are, and someone is going to get that message.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that would be your main message to up and coming independent artists. What else would you say?
Absolutely.
What else?
There's no one who is born into this world who will have your own unique you-ness.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to try and copy, Taylor Swift. There's one Taylor Swift. Why do we need more?
Well, that's true, but we've got production companies who are already keeping an eye on that anyway. They're saying now, why would we do another Guy Sebastian when we've already got one? That this is the kind of thing, and it's also because of what the population is in Australia. You can't have two of this artist, you can't have two of that artist. And just because you love to do that kind of music and you can't get a break in that, just look at The Voice 2019 and Diana Rubis, who's already done The Voice before, and she's been around for a heck of a lot of time. She's had knockbacks her entire life, and she just kept getting back up and kept doing her thing and being true to who she is. And that's the sign of a true artist, is being true to who you are, not compromising, but being true to what that is. You have a brand, you know what that is, just spend your life refining it. And someone will see that and pick it up.
Exactly.
Because you have mastered it. You have mastered you. No one else. You have mastered you.
Yeah, but it's believing in yourself too. It's having faith within yourself, and I think a lot of people when they're young, they would say, "Look, I've been at this for 6 months," and I'll just laugh, just go, "All right, okay, 6 months. Keep going, good along. Just keep going. Just you've got to start believing in yourself." But some people, and I think if you're able to find yourself, you're very, very lucky as well.
And then by 6 months, it's not necessarily. When people say to me, "I've been doing it for this amount of time," and it's relatively a very small amount of time. It's really because you sound fantastic. I mean, obviously you've got a lot of work that you still need to put into that, but you're doing really well. There's encouraging. I would love to encourage people like that, but also to make them realise in comparison to what's out there, get back to listening to the people you love. Pick out the best things. Don't copy them. Just pick out the best things you love from everything that you love, and put that together. And then how do you mix in your persona into it?
Yeah, who you are. And so, speaking of which, who inspired you as a singer when you began? Who did you listen to?
I don't really know. I can't really remember. I did listen to a lot of people. It was due to the fact that we never really owned a record player when I was growing up. We were very poor. So we didn't own vinyls or anything to listen to. So we listened to music on the wireless.
Right.
So
wow.
So it was the ABC and the BBC. So that's the kind of music that I was raised on. And whenever we were around someone's house on a Sunday afternoon, or whenever it was that they played all of the music programs on a black and white TV set, because in Australia we didn't get colour TVs until quite late.
Yeah.
And so we were always watching music shows on black and white TVs. I mean, I always hated that my parents needed to leave right in the middle of those shows. So, it was, I barely got the hint of anything, but it just, because I could barely have a love relationship with these artists and the music, all I know is I just absolutely loved disco, soul, R&B, actually old school soul, and I love Motown.
Yeah, and you know what, it wasn't that big in Australia back then either, and it
wasn't cool.
No, it wasn't cool. I absolutely loved R&B, soul music, and honestly, it seems to be just of late, and what submissions I get through Music Talks, there hasn't been a lot of submissions for R&B soul until only recently. And now when I hear it again, I think, fantastic, bring it on. But then I also notice a lot of people are trying to rehash the sound of the 80s. So they're really trying to bring back the sound of the 80s with a bit of fusion between R&B and... Oh, there's so many of them. R&B and maybe rock, you know, or dance, you know. I heard a recent EDM track, but it's not EDM, electronic music as we know it now. It's how it used to be. More melodic, more, you know how when people, I mean, I used to teach singing for like 30 years, and I used to have, you know, students that would come to me and say, I want to sing the song. And it was quite easy back then for people to be able to actually choose a song to sing. And now, how can you sing EDM? Do you know what I mean? It's like, how do you teach certain EDM tracks to people? But then now I hear other new music coming through just recently, and when I hear it with a nice melody and with, you know, as anything, sometimes, you know, all you need is a great song, you know, an absolutely just smashing song that anyone can sing. And I think that's a really good start, you know.
Yeah. That not having a television and only sort of relying a lot on what we listened to on the wireless, for me, it had to have been the mid to late 70s that I remember watching Soul Train. And I don't remember when and I don't remember where, but I just remember thinking, I love that look. I love those froze. I want to dance. I want to have fun like that. That is so cool.
Did you sing into a hairbrush?
Well, I think later on. So I watched later on I watched the Blues Brothers, and when Aretha Franklin was cast into it. And I remember after she sang that, you know, that's all I wanted to do was sing just like that, like be a mama with sass and attitude.
And speaking of which, good segue, you have embraced the whole Aretha feel, all the songs. Tell us what you're doing. You've got a show that you're touring with now. What's it called? The Aretha Franklin Songbook show?
It's Rewind.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now,
back up and rewind.
Okay, tell us first, how did this come about? And obviously you just mentioned that how much you loved Aretha Franklin. Did you make a decision to put this show together after her death as a tribute kind of thing?
I recorded an album and started touring in 2012. So we only lost Aretha last year in 2018. So I'd already put an album out and was well and truly on the road doing a lot of Aretha Franklin songs. So
okay.
I guess after she passed away, it was really heartbreaking. I remember being really, really heartbroken at the news of her death, but knowing that she'd been ill for quite some time, and that it you know, probably the best thing for her was to not go through any more pain. Mm-hmm. And I was meant to come out not long after that, but I just thought it was going to be too bad taste to kind of run with that and blah blah. But I just wanted to. I guess I wanted to celebrate her again in my own time, because it's not like I hadn't already been celebrating her. She's been very much a part of, the shows that I've been presenting and producing out there. So it's called Rewind, the Aretha Franklin Songbook. I'm bringing it out again because I think the time is, for me, it feels right to do that now, to pay homage to her. So that the tour begins in and throughout the eastern cap cities. I'm going over to Perth as well. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We can put all those show dates up on the site. So I'm going to put all the information up on the website as well, and all the links so that people can actually read more about you and they can hear the podcast as well. Obviously, podcast will be on iHeart Radio, iTunes, obviously the website, and Spreaker.
Beautiful.
And YouTube. Yay.
Hey, excellent. Well, oh my gosh, what an honour to talk to you, Tracy. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's been an honour to talk to you as well, Christine. It's been absolutely fantastic, and we should have another chat when you've got more time, of course.
Really, you want to talk to me again? I don't shut up.
Oh, look, I love it. I tell you what, you should hear me and one of my other friends. Thank you very much, Christine. It's been a pleasure having you on. Have a great day.
Hey, all the best with family.
Yeah, thank you. You too. All the best with Aretha show.
You.
Guest Talks with Tracy Arbon, bringing you special guest interviews from musictalks.xyz.